They can protect Burke because Burke is their child and Burke is behind them. They don't need a lawyer for Burke because they simply say, he's our child, and no, you're not going to talk to him. All of a sudden, I'm getting a call from JonBenét, and JonBenét is telling Cindy, yo, Cindy, we got to talk. Talk about what, John? Last I heard with you is, you were cheating on me. Go badger everyone else. Okay, let's go talk to Cindy. You can't talk to Cindy. Okay, so last time we were going through these police reports, trying to understand from the police's side what exactly was going on in the investigation. And for me, the motivation was, John often says that the police aren't doing anything. They're essentially incompetent, inept, and they are twiddling their thumbs. And so for me, you do wonder, because it seems so silent, what are the police doing? Then I stumbled across this when I stumbled across this when I was looking at the police update for 2024. And then I saw that they were like on the same page of like a bunch of, on the Colorado website or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But then I saw on the same page, like all the way down, it's like, they're doing updates. And I was like, okay, so here's another update. And it's like, started like scrolling all the way down the line. It was like, wait, there's a bunch of updates here. I was like, oh, well, dang. You know what I'm saying? Look like they got a whole bunch of updates, How long has this been going on? And essentially, like, I ran up on this, and it was early in the investigation on kind of saying, this is what we've been doing. And I was like, well, hold on. If these people have been giving us news releases on what they've been doing this entire time, and they've been telling us this entire time, hey, we're trying to employ this method. We're trying to employ this agency. We're trying to, this is the amount of money that we're spending. It's like, what more can you ask for? We've put in this many hours. We've traveled to these places. We talked to these people. We followed up on these many tips. It's like, what more can you ask these people to do? Like, they're putting in a lot of man hours and a lot of time to solve this case. So it's not like what's being purported. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually that these people are doing their work. So I left off on, I think, page 19. We were talking about the money that they've spent so far on this case. And this is a month. They spent $77,000 within a month, on dedicating their time and their efforts and their energies to solving this case. So I think I want to move to page 21. And again, just for clarity, I am skipping over, there's about 78 pages in this. I'm skipping over pages as to what's important to me. You're certainly welcome to go and look for this. This is called the Update on Homicide Investigation, is what this is. And this is linked to bouldercolorado.gov. And you can kind of go there. It's a PDF and you can download this. And again, it's 78 pages. And it's actually really fascinating. Honestly, if you're into the stuff, it's really fascinating. So page 21. Here we go. Yeah, I think we'll probably start here a little bit before page 21. Okay, so this is for immediate release, 3:30 p.m., February 4th of 1997. Contact on this is Leslie Ahome, Kevin McNeil, City of Boulder Media Relations, or Janet Peterson, Boulder County. Ramsey Case News Release Index. Ramsey Case News Release number 25, Felony Menacing Incident Involving Media Covering Ramsey Case. Boulder Police today arrested Jay Elowsky on charges of felony menacing and carrying a concealed weapon following an incident in the 4900 block of North Broadway. It appears that Mr. Elowsky accosted members of the media that were waiting in an area where members of the Ramsey family may have been residing. Around 10 a.m. this morning, Mr. Elowsky threatened 3 individuals with a baseball bat. A loaded weapon also was recovered from the scene. Mr. Elowsky was arrested at the scene without further incident and booked at the Boulder County Jail. The arrest occurred in the jurisdiction of the Boulder County Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department will conduct any necessary follow-up to this incident A copy of the arrest report is attached to this news release. As you may be wondering, I was wondering who this individual is. So,
in 1988, Jay and his parents opened the first Pasta J's right here in Boulder. Inducted to the Boulder Country Business Hall of Fame in 2009, in his 36 plus years in the restaurant business, Jay's been most charitable with the athletic department since he opened his restaurant, constantly donating meals to various functions and events. He was instrumental with then athletic director Mike Bone and businessman Dan Hirsch in creating the Pearl Street Stampede, which we're going to enjoy tomorrow night, in which he also feeds CU's.
Pearl Street, as you know, is where Access Graphics was located, and I think Don Paul also had like a condo or an apartment on Pearl Street.
Member ever since. Ladies and gentlemen, all you got to say is Pasta J. Come on up to the podium. He's the newest inductee into the Legacy Wing.
How are we doing tonight? Fantastic. All right, guys. I need some glasses here to see what I'm doing. How about them Buffaloes? Wow, what a distinguished class. I'm truly honored, grateful, and humbled to be part of this class of Hall of Famers on this award. Let's give them another big hand. Everybody settle in. I got about an hour and a half here.
Rick will tackle you if you do that.
Yeah, he's been sending me texts all day. Keep it short. I would like to thank all of you for coming tonight, and I've got several messages, but this award belongs to you, the coaches, staff, faculty, and administration of this prestigious university, and belongs to my invitees who helped support the Pasta J's machine. I will tell you why this honor belongs to you and how you have made it possible. This is going to get emotional here, guys, so settle in. But first, I'd like to say a few thank yous. I'd like to thank Almighty God for this blessing. I'd like to thank the board who nominated me and voted for me, the ones I know of, Kimberly Orr, my best customer, Dave Platty. Hey, when are we naming a building after Dave Platty? I mean, come on, let's get it going. Let's get it going. Rick George, and John Baryonic, and the other board members who remain anonymous. I would also like to thank and acknowledge my family, my kids, Jay Wyatt and Josie, my mom, Jean, my dad, Lowell, the great American hero, my brother Grant and his wife Bridget and their son Parker, my sister Jennifer and my cousin Jamie, who all made the trip out here today. Mm-hmm. And for all the friends who came tonight and support us on a daily basis. And also I'd like to thank the sweet love of my life, Beryl Stafford, who tomorrow, uncannily enough, is receiving from our own prestigious CU Leeds Business School Woman Entrepreneur of the Year for starting and owning her own company, the world famous Bobo Bars. Let's hear it for Beryl. True story. Some Cheerios in his bathroom, and when JY was little and had to go to the bathroom when I was up in the office, he would take the box of Cheerios, dump them in the toilet, take JY in there, close the door, and say, "All right, now sink them." True story. True story. Oh, gosh. Brian Cabral, who has taken me under his wing as a spiritual mentor. What a family environment to be part of. Which brings me to 3 points I'd like to leave you here with tonight. First one, the word coach comes from the word stagecoach, like in the Old West, which means taking people where they can't take themselves. The word coach means taking people where they can't take themselves. It's an organization that is working towards the greater good. I'm repeating myself, sorry about that. Mentoring young student athletes. What a fairy tale story, and how exciting working with such legendary giants such as Coach Mack, Coach Boyles, Coach Simpson, Coach Wetmore, Coach Steckel, Ricardo Patton.
So I just wanted to get a sense of his personality before I transition back and who I'm talking to. Very high energy guy. This is someone, if I remember correctly, went into business with John for Pasta J's. This is the guy who is high energy. So he seems very high energy. He seems like a nice guy, but you know, sometimes nice people have very, the valence is the same. It's the same on both spectrums. High energy, happy, fun loving guy, you know, for people who know him and typically the people who meet him. But, you know, if you're not on the good balance side, then you're on the bad balance side. And, you know, that means his emotions can swing negative, and he can get really aggressive. I remember I used to have a coach back in high school. And he was really high energy like this. Good Christian man. He was a good Christian man. He's an awesome guy, man. But he was a wide receivers coach. And he would chew his gum so hard. You know what I mean? And you could see his jaw just working. And he's like, and he lay his hand on your shoulder or something like that. All right, what we're about to do is we're going to go over here and we're going to run. And we're going to run. We're going to run. And don't stop. And then like, just, you would run and then come back and he would do the same thing. I'm doing this because I love you. Because I love you. I care about you. Now, you know that. I don't mean to get all sentimental, but I love you. And so this is kind of the vibe that I'm getting from Pasta J. So I'll transition back to one of the articles that I saw kind of on this note. This is one of the articles from I think September 19th. Doesn't really give me a year, but cyber-sleuths tour land of JonBenét. None of them is the pale, bug-eyed, pocket protector wearing geek you might expect to find in a group of people who spend countless hours online probing the killings of total stranger as if it happened to their family. This is a huge adventure. They are the JonBenét Ramsey murder obsessed cyber sleuths. About 30 of them descending on a notoriety-weary Boulder this weekend for some socializing and some serious strange sightseeing. This is a huge adventure for me, said the newspaper woman, who revealed only her internet name, reporter. Kathy, a San Francisco area daycare operator, said she got a kick out of finally meeting people, the people that she knows so well electronically. You hear how someone speaks for 2 years, you think you know them, you get an image of them, Kathy said. When you actually see them, sometimes the image fits, but sometimes virtual reality couldn't be any further from the corporeal reality, she said. And I am trying to get to a certain point. The woman they all know as Catnip, whose real name is Chris Wheeler, said seeing the Ramseys Tudor-style brick home was a bit of a jolt, even after seeing countless photos. She envisioned it larger. I drove by the Ramseys' summer house in Charlevoix, and it had more emotional impact somehow, she said. Catnip has earned a measure of internet renown as the founder of Mark Beckner fan club devoted to the Boulder police chief. Catnip and her cohorts don't expect to meet the man who took over the investigation last October. By Friday afternoon, the group had seen the former Ramsey home 3 times, in some cases, toured the Boulder County Justice Center. 3 had discussed the case for early rising radio fans of Peter Boyle's show. Several had met Hunter's spokeswoman, Suzanne Larian, and 3 of them even dined at Pasta J's, the Italian restaurant owned by loyal Ramsey family friend Jay Elowsky. Elowsky has become well known for his disgust with the media coverage of the case. And so they kind of talk about Miss Brady has, in her words, been blown away by Boulder. I really just pictured violence directed toward her and her comrades. She was expecting something along the lines of what happened to the photographer whose camera was smashed to the sidewalk by a resident irate over the clump of media outside the courtroom for the first day of the grand jury's meeting. No Ramsey development is too trivial to escape Miss Brady's notice. Instead, Boulderites have been polite, even cordial, she said. Cordial. And Miss Brady has put them to the ultimate test. She has smoked in public. Daring as that may be, Miss Brady and friends weren't fearless enough to reveal themselves when they dined at Pasta J's. They did, however, leave behind a couple of the lapel buttons, catnip designed heart-shaped pins are red, with white letters that read, JonBenét deserves justice. And while they maintain a healthy sense of humor about themselves, they don't find anything funny about the death of the 6-year-old girl. So that's what I wanted to get to. They went to Pasta J's and they were kind of out and about, sort of having fun, but there was some sort of pushback or some sort of restriction when they went to Pasta J's. Now, this is another article reported in the Daily Camera. And I guess they're kind of asking, essentially, and let me show it. Did Jay Elowsky receive special treatment when he ran afoul of the law in Boulder? So Pasta J and the law. Of course he did, but not from the district attorney's office. The special treatment came from a few overheated corners of the media where his case was singled out as a hot topic only because it was a sideshow in the Ramsey murder investigation. Elowsky, the owner of Pasta J's restaurant, was involved in an incident early in February when John and Patsy Ramsey were staying at his house. I did not know that. So that's interesting. If John and Patsy Ramsey had so much money, and I thought they were staying for 6 months with the Steins. Am I wrong? Is it the Steins or the Fernies? I thought it was the Steins. This is February. Why would you? I thought you were staying with the Steins. I'm confused by that. Because I thought they left their home and went to stay with the Steins and stayed there, went to the funeral, came back and set up residence. But apparently they went to the funeral and came back and they were staying with Pasta J, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I thought they were staying with the Steins, but it seems like their path was a little bit more of a bounce because we were talking about they would have wore out their welcome for 6 months. And so this is probably why, because they were bouncing from house to house to house. And this is very weird for a CEO of a successful company. You hear me? This is what I'm saying. When we talk about all of the money that John Ramsey was making and how, wealthy he was and he could have gotten $10 million. And so the $118,000 to me seems more like a signal in your mind. Sometimes we put mental limitations on ourselves, right? When you go to write something down, and and when you go to write something down, maybe you write out your goals. Your goals are subject to the limitations that you think that you can reach, right? So if you say, man, I want to be able to work out, my New Year's resolution is to work out 3 times a week. You can buy a membership to a gym and work out 7 days a week, 2 times a day. There are people who do that, or 6 days, 6 days a week, 2 or 3 times a day for Olympic training, for other weight training or muscle man, strongman competitions and all such as that. They train. So you could do that, but do you think you can handle the pressure of going to the gym 3 times a day, 2 times a day, 5, 6 times a week? You might be physically capable. You can do it. You show up in the morning, you do your workout for an hour, you leave, you eat, you do whatever, take a nap, and you can come back and go to the gym later. That's possible. But you say, I don't want to exhaust myself. I don't want to tire myself out. So I'm just going to go to the gym, and I don't want to disappoint myself. So I'm going to say 3 times a week. I might think that it's important, possibly, that someone in the police report said, if the person had really known John, then, and some of the language, the motivation of the language, if the person had really known John, they would have known they could have asked for $10 million. I think one of the police reports said, I think it was Whitson or something like that. Or it could have been either Whitson or Arndt, if I'm remembering correctly. They would have known they could have asked for $10 million, but they asked for such a small amount. And I'm wondering that if it is the case that Patsy wrote the note and she knew that it was possible in terms of the financial position that they are in, I'm not that liquid, but I can be liquid enough to get $118,000, right? Because even when we're talking about, and as we read through, even when we're talking about the amount that they put up for the reward, I think they put up $50,000. If I'm worth $10 million, I can put out $1 million reward, but we're talking about the Ramseys putting up $50K on one point and then others helping to raise the full $100K. The Ramseys, I think the article, the news update said the Ramseys and others. So it makes me wonder, just where were you, and according to Hal Haddon, and in various ways, multiple times, the Ramseys talk about going broke and not having money. And I think Hal Haddon kind of said the same thing, in his oral history, that the Ramseys went broke relatively quickly. And of course, we're going to talk about that. I think he said they went broke relatively quickly. I mean, because he's a high money attorney. And I went and looked at, and like I said, he was the attorney to Ghislaine Maxwell and Kobe Bryant. So, his firm ain't playing no games. And I went and looked up, the retainer fee, and I was like, yo, what's a guy like that going for on the market? You know what I mean? Like, what's a firm like that going for on the market? How much money are they demanding? Are they charging from their clients? You got Kobe Bryant, you got this hockey player. You could charge a lot of money for your services, especially if you're dang near guaranteeing to get these people out of trouble or get them a significantly reduced sentence. Like, people like that make a lot of money. You know what I mean? Those are the people that, that are at, parties or social events, and, that's not an elephant, that's my wife, ha ha ha. And people are just falling out laughing, the great Hal Haddon, that's what kind of money they're making, So I was like, man, trying to get my hands on what kind of money would how much would those services be going for? And so if you're paying for that, and you're going broke in essentially a year, how much money do you have? Because you're not going back to your home. And your reason for not going back to your home is because, I just can't bear to go in that house again. Unless very early, December 26th, Hal Haddon discussed with you, okay, my retainer is going to be this. And we're probably going to need all this because John is a businessman. He's going to ask, well, how much is all of this going to cost me? And Hal Haddon has been in business, for 20 years at this point, started in 76 and he's been in business for 20 years at this point, or 74, something like that. And he's been in business for 20 years at this point. So, he's probably laying out the fee statement. And John is like, well, dang, we might have to, we'll discuss a strategy. We'll discuss a consultation and first time consultation. And then we'll discuss how we could move forward and proceed forward with the case and payment. And if they look at that fee statement and that fee statement is like, hey, yo, and John is like, yo, I'm not going to get no more money. I sold my stake over here. They're actually about to fire me. I might not get that bonus like I expected. So this might cause a lot of problems. We might be in trouble. And so very early, you have to go on the news to kind of make sure that if you're thinking ahead, if you're planning ahead, then I can get that news money. I can get that media coverage money. They can pay me a little something. And then the more we do, the more we make appearances, the more that we can charge for that. And in some ways, I want to go look at the price of the homes that they sold off or ended up letting go, because I think the Boulder home, they went underwater on that one, just because of the amount that Patsy spent. Now, the house in of itself, I think they bought it for $500,000, and then they sold it to an investor group for $650,000. So that appreciated about $150,000 in about 2 years, I guess. No, not 2 years. I'm sorry. They got it in 91. So it appreciated to $150,000 by the time they probably got rid of it in 96, 97, maybe 98, who knows. But it appreciated $150,000. That's a good chunk, but with the money you spend on it, you got to do what you got to do. $650,000 will be pretty good to try to cover some legal fees. And while you're doing that, you're staying with people to kind of get your feet under you, because we can't pay for a house down here, and all of our money is best spent. All of our money is best used paying for lawyers and not paying for a home and paying for a lifestyle up here. All of our money is best spent. And you know what, though? That kind of tells me a little bit about who the Ramseys are, just in terms of their ability to get close to you and connect with you. That tells me a little bit about that, because it would seem that they are I don't want to say that. I don't want to say how I'm thinking, but I will just say that it seems like they can be very, very persuasive. They are very good at getting you to like them. Let me say it like that. They are very good at getting people to do things for their benefit. You may have family and friends, or that one family or that one friend who who is very charismatic, and they're so good they're so likable. You know what I mean? They're so likable that it's like you would almost do anything for them. But once you get in close proximity with them, maybe they're like, hey man, I need a place to stay. And they come over and you're like, oh man, the house is yours, whatever you need. And they're not really good house guests, to be honest with you. They're leaving their stuff all over the place. And so that kind of just really changes your perception of them. You love them, but that kind of really changes your perception of them. And as charismatic as they are, and as lovable and likable as they are, when you live with them, you start to kind of see some of the downfalls that not a lot of people see. And that really shapes your perception of them moving forward. Like, dang, man, this is what the public sees, but this is what I know about them. And you kind of feel duped a little bit, because you're like, dang, man, we used to really like each other, but now I'm just ready for them to move out, and we kind of go on about our business. I'm wondering if some of that happened. And again, this is just speculation, but I'm wondering if some of that kind of happened in the Ramsey case as they're moving around to these different people's, to these different houses. because I did not know he went to Pasta. He stayed with Pasta J for a little bit. So Elowsky, the owner of Pasta J's, was involved in an incident early in February 10th, according to police. Or Patsy and Ramsey were staying at his house, and reporters literally were surrounding the place. That's crazy. On February 10th, according to the police, Elowsky pursued 3 men in belief that they were reporters, screaming obscenities and holding a baseball bat. He approached 2 of them in their car and ordered them away from his property. And I say this is far different from, I think, how Haddon was talking about all the elaborate ways that all the links that they went to kind of get away from reporters, like going and walking down a creek or something like that, or going a long way and walking to get to his car and stuff like that, to avoid questions and avoid pop-up interviews and people popping up on you and stuff like that. And the Ramseys went to a certain length to stop people from dumpster diving and kind of, I think John talks about in his book what they did to kind of sneak around and go to the store. They used to wear sunglasses or something like that, or and sneak past the media. And he talked about how Burke was so hurt when Burke saw like the tabloid kind of accusing him of killing JonBenét. So basically, essentially, these people are camped out, and Jay thinks that these people are part of the media. They were engineers who worked nearby. One reportedly picked up a pipe and followed Elowsky back to his BMW. Although the victims never saw a weapon, Elowsky later told police that he pulled a loaded weapon out of his fanny pack as the man approached his BMW and dropped it into a paper bag on the floor of the car. With all due respect, or with all due allowance for the pressure Elowsky was under, there's no excuse for his actions as described by police. He lost his head. He scared the wits out of 2 innocent people. And based on the reports, he committed a crime. The question is, what charges should be faced? Okay. The police arrested Elowsky on suspicion of felony menacing with a baseball bat and unlawfully carrying a concealed weapon, a misdemeanor. Under proposed agreement with the Boulder's DA office, Elowsky would plead guilty to a misdemeanor charge of menacing. A judge will rule on that proposed agreement in June. The charge is hardly trivial. The penalties can include time in jail, but it generated charges of favoritism. And justice for the rich. Seizing on the remark of an assistant DA who reportedly told one of the victims that a felony conviction could cost Elowsky his liquor license and jeopardize a business loan. Some complained that this man was treated differently because of his wealth and connections. People continue to say that in this case, specifically regarding John Ramsey. The rich are respected differently. And so we see John is associated with somebody who is sort of being coddled by the police. But hold on now. Because when we go to criticize the police and criticize after everything that we're seeing, when we go to criticize these cops, the respect for these cops needs to be just as loud as the disrespect, because your boy should have been arrested. Felonious. Your boy should have been arrested. But because he was wealthy, matter of fact, y'all, as people continue to say in the comments, these people should have been, Patsy and John should have been separated and arrested from the get-go. If they didn't have money for attorneys, if this was anybody else in America that didn't have any money and was from maybe middle income or lower income status, as the Vanity Fair article also says as well, and everybody is on the same page, had this been anybody else, then people would have been down at that police station. You know what I mean? Answering questions, ignorant of their rights. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. You need to be aware of your rights. And I'm not saying that it's bad to get a lawyer. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if there was anybody else, it would have been different. And that's what people are calling out. And that is what the police did. The police. You have the DA and you have the police. We arrested him. We put him forth. But the police kind of helped you. You know what I mean? They're kind of looking at, and the law enforcement, they're kind of helping you say, hey, man, we know you got a business loan. This is what a small community gets you. They get you the benefit of the doubt. We talked about that. as John is running his mouth and running these cops down. This is what a small town gets you. The benefit of the doubt. We see that in the reports where they looked out for the Ramseys and said Patsy and John are in no position or in any headspace to be speaking with us. We will let that ride, but we do have to talk to them. They're getting blasted by John and Patsy Ramsey out of nowhere, and they come back with, we have kids of our own, and so we know how it feels. We're getting counseling for ourselves. We're setting up counseling and victims advocate services at schools and for individuals, anybody who needs it, and we're encouraging everybody who needs it to take time, because this thing really rocked our community. We all felt this on a very deep level. Right? We brought victims advocates to your home. And this shows that there's a community of support, right? People are reaching out. If there is nothing else that we take from the police updates that we're going through, there is a community of support surrounding and wrapping around and engulfing the Ramseys. They're trying to support these people. You put up 50K, we'll put up 50K to kind of help you find your daughter. Just let us know what we need to do. Putting pressure on the police. You guys need to get this solved, so on and so forth. You got a lot of support, but you turn around and talk to cops in the ground. What? Come on, calling them out. Anyways, but hold it. The only way to know whether Elowsky received special treatment is to ask a simple question. Compared to what? How were other cases treated in Boulder? If the critics had asked, they'd have known that he wasn't treated differently at all. The crime of menacing as defined in law is a misdemeanor unless it's, who wrote this? Daily Camera editorial. So it doesn't really say, okay. I'm going to put your name out there. Okay. Unless it's the crime of menacing as defined in law is a misdemeanor unless it's committed with a deadly weapon, in which case it becomes a felony. Of course, a baseball bat can be a deadly weapon, but the usual practice in Boulder is this: if you didn't commit a crime with a gun or a knife, and if you have no prior criminal record, you're likely to end up with a misdemeanor charge the first time around. You are likely, in short, to be treated as Elowsky was treated. Okay, so they're saying this is a Boulder, Colorado thing. We always do this. There's no scrap of evidence that this agreement was reached because of a liquor license was involved. If the people in the DA's office considered as one factor among many that someone's livelihood was at stake, they did for Elowsky what they have done for many other defendants and what any competent, reasonable district attorney's office should do. They treated him as a human being. Yeah, sir, but ma'am, whoever you are. But the thing about that is, some people are thrown under the jail and they are held accountable according to the furthest extent of the law, regardless of whether they have a liquor license or whether they have a business loan or whether they are a human being. Because it is said that, you make mistakes, you do the time, you do the crime, you got to do the time. And that's what it is. So no, maybe in Boulder, it's different, but sometimes in general, it's not, but I'm not advocating for anything different. I'm just saying, like, it's not always the case. But not going to make a big deal out of it. It doesn't matter. Treat him like a human being all you want. But they didn't treat him as a special case. In 1996, according to the prosecutor's records, 65 of 151 menacing cases involved defendants who, like Elowsky, had no prior record and didn't use a gun or a knife. All 65 resulted in misdemeanor menacing charges. Okay. You can argue that the usual practice is a mistake. You can argue that it was a mistake with Elowsky's case, even if it was the right call in 65 others. But the only way to back up the charge that Elowsky's case tainted by favoritism is to ignore the relevant facts. In their zeal to squeeze one more drop of sensational news from the murder of a child, some have done exactly that. And it goes into the murder of JonBenét. And it's saying that it was originally published on April 7, 2024, but I don't think that's true. But anyways, and here's another article. Pasta J's owner arrested. Bad gun. Obviously, blah, 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 as we've all seen. Of course, about 10 a.m., I think it's saying, Elowsky was arrested on suspicion of felony menacing with a deadly weapon and unlawfully carrying a concealed weapon. He was released on his own he was released on his own recognizance after posting a $2,500 bond. About 10 a.m., Warren Schmelzer and Ira Heyman, who work at Specialized Engineering at 4939 Broadway in North Boulder, were in Schmelzer's car in a parking lot beside the building when they saw a man walking up to them with a baseball bat. Schmelzer and Heyman told police that the man walked up to the passenger window and raised the bat as if he were going to hit the car, yelling, "Get the out of here," according to the arrest report. Schmelzer and Heyman told police the man, later identified as Elowsky, circled the car before returning to his light tan BMW. Schmelzer told police that he then ran inside to call 911 while Heyman waited in the car. The city press release said Elowsky appeared to have accosted members of the media that were waiting in the area where members of the Ramsey family may have been residing. Okay. Declined to comment. NBC crew. So I just want to kind of understand a little bit more about Elowsky. So basically, you can be really happy, and then, you can be really angry. And this is the person who is coming to the defense of the Ramseys. Now, I don't know how to feel about that. That's your friend, that's your boy, that's your pal. You definitely have a right to, protect your friends. I don't know if this is the way to do it, but you definitely have a right to protect your friends. So it is what it is. And I'll kind of go back to the report. So Boulder police today arrested Jay Elowsky on charges of felony menacing. This is where on page 21. And it appears he accosted members of the media. Okay, this is where it came from. Around 10 this morning, he threatened 3 individuals with a baseball bat. A loaded weapon also was recovered from the scene. He was arrested without further incident and booked in the Boulder County Jail. Arrest occurred in the jurisdiction of the Boulder County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's Department will conduct any necessary follow-up on this. Copy of the arrest report is attached to this newsletter, or attached to this news release. Okay, so that's page 21. Then I wanted to go to page 26. Again, this is just me skipping around because this is what I want to do. Okay, Ramsey case news release number 32, March 6th update. Various items in the case have been sent to Cellmark Diagnostics in Maryland for DNA testing. The items were delivered on Tuesday, February 28th. The testing by Cellmark could take up to 6 weeks for results. Boulder police are in receipt of the third set of handwriting samples from Miss Patricia Ramsey. These items were collected by Boulder police on Friday, February 28th. Police had difficulty obtaining satisfactory samples because Miss Ramsey is reported to have been taking medication since December 26th. Now, this is March 6th. They asked you for handwriting samples, and they sort of, because they got some initial samples, but they were looking for satisfactory. And so here again, we see sort of like a pullback on we will give you something, but it might not necessarily be, what you're looking for. We'll give you something, but it might not be what you're looking for. And so this is what the police are saying. Boulder police are in the receipt of this third set of handwriting samples, and we've had to wait because Patsy is on medication. She's been on medication for a while. And this, of course, this is how she's coping. This is how she's numbing the pain. Based on the information Boulder police have to date, police are now able to eliminate John, Andrew, and Melinda Ramsey as potential suspects. John, Andrew, and Melinda are being publicly cleared of involvement to relieve them of distress caused by inappropriate speculation. This is a news release that the police are releasing your kids. The police are releasing your kids. Okay? Boulder detectives traveled to Roswell, Georgia for the express purpose of collecting conclusive evidence that would allow us to eliminate John, Andrew, and Melinda from suspicion in this case. Upon arrival, we were informed that John B. Ramsey had retained, oh, this is where I saw it. I was wondering where I saw it. Upon arrival, we were informed that John B. Ramsey had retained attorney James Jenkins in Atlanta to represent Lucinda Johnson, Melinda, and John Andrew. Mr. Jenkins declined to allow his clients to speak to us. As a result, alternative sources of information had to be developed, which delayed our ability to publicly issue this information. The Boulder Police internal investigation process, which was initiated to examine a concern that Detective Sergeant Larry Mason was involved in an unauthorized release of information, has been completed. The process has determined this concern to be unfounded. So there was an investigation that said Detective Mason had released some information or leaked some information. Police are saying that, we have not found anything on that investigation. Now, of course, these are cops probably protecting cops, so the odds of them, finding, something, investigating their self and finding something, who knows, it is what it is. Obviously, all the cops in the chat are going to be like, hey, we're honest people, blah, blah. I don't doubt that. But everybody else is probably going to be like, or other people who might be a little bit more skeptical are going to be like, well, you could, this is a possibility. Again, I'm not here to argue, I'm not here to argue that point. What I am interested in, though, is this little tidbit. March the 6th. Boulder detectives traveled to Roswell, Georgia for the express purpose of collecting conclusive evidence that would eliminate John and Melinda. So we are trying to work our way. Police bungling. Come on. Police bungling. We are going to try to clear John, Andrew, and Melinda. Now, you see, in 3 months, because that's what we need time. We just need time to clear people. And we're making our way around to clear people. We have to do that. So we're going to Roswell, Georgia. We're leaving out of Colorado and going to Roswell, Georgia for the express purpose of trying to clear your kids. We're trying to do that for you. We're trying to work with you. But, upon arrival, when we get there, I am halted. I'm halted. How do you ask? Are you halted? I'm halted. We were informed that John B. Ramsey had retained an attorney for Lucinda, Melinda, and John Andrew. You retained an attorney? I can understand Melinda and John Andrew, but you retained an attorney for Cindy. Almost 20 years. Say about 19 years. Divorced in 78, 88, 98. We're a year shy of 98, 20 years almost. We've been divorced. And this pops up on Cindy's timeline. All of a sudden, I'm getting a call from JonBenét. And JonBenét is telling Cindy, yo, Cindy, we got to talk. Talk about what, John? We haven't been together in 20 years almost. And, we really ain't got nothing to talk about. Last I heard with you is, you were cheating on me, no disrespect. I'm not trying to throw it in his face. But when you talk about couples, that left a bad taste in her mouth. It really did. Come on, let's be real about it. That left a disgusting taste in her mouth, and from what it sounds like Cindy is not the fighting type. She's not the arguing type. She's just going about her business. You know what I mean? If we can think about Beth, and Beth kind of, the way John was describing her, Beth kind of being like, all right, Dad, I'll go with you. John trying to convince everybody to go down with him to buy a boat and nobody wanted to go. And then Beth was like, all right, Dad, I'll go with you. Unproblematic. I don't want no problems, man. So she probably picked that up from her mama. Unproblematic. I don't want no problems, but I won't take disrespect. I won't take you cheating on me and I'm pregnant with the kid. I'm not going to do that. or at least that's how I understand it. When I say that, because J.A. Was born in 76, and I think John had been cheating for 2 years. If I think correctly about what he was saying in the interview with detectives. So that's neither here nor there. The point is, you did cheat on your wife. You revealed that in police reports. Now, I understand Melinda and John. You retained an attorney for yourself. You retained an attorney for your wife. But now you got an attorney for your ex-wife. That is particularly weird to me, because that's a lot of money that you're spending. And in that case, when you're retaining all these high-powered attorneys, and you're sort of creating a wall of silence, is essentially what you're doing. You're creating a wall of silence. That's crazy. I would have to speculate at least a little bit that something is going on. And you want a lot of control over this situation. And I mean that. This is a crazy level of control. You're retaining an attorney for your ex-wife. And you're kind of saying, okay, I imagine the conversation going like this. You run to, because we came to Roswell, Georgia. See, this is police bungling. They bungle their way down to Roswell, Georgia. You know, we fumbling and bumbling and rolling and tumbling, you know, all the way down to Roswell, Georgia. And we show up, you know, we're like, hey, trying to get some information from you. And John is already there waiting with an attorney. How did you know we were coming to talk to, I understand your kids, but how did you know we were coming to talk to Cindy? This is in March. How did you get to Cindy? Could have been one of two things. Either Cindy called and said, John, your boys are on my trail. They're asking me questions. What do you want me to say? I'm calling out of courtesy for you. What do I need to say? Or it could have been that John went to Cindy and said, look. I know we ain't always been on the best of terms, but look, I need you to, something happen with my family. And it's like, John, this ain't got nothing to do with me. This is your stuff. This ain't my stuff. Best of luck to you. Ain't got nothing to do with me. Keep it over there. When they come, I'm just going to say, I don't know nothing. I don't know nobody. I don't. Yeah. But no. But so they ask, they you know, they might come ask you about who I am and stuff like that. They might ask you. So please don't say nothing. John, I'm not going to say anything damaging. I'm just going to be honest. No. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. So you don't have to lie or feel like you have to lie or feel like you have to say anything. I'm going to retain an attorney for you. So, and just let the attorney do the talking. Those attorneys are coordinating with my attorney and Patsy's attorneys. We're making sure everybody's on the same page, because one thing is for certain. They had their attorney army on point. Everybody's lawyered up. You know what? Why you didn't get a lawyer for Fleet White? Why didn't you get a lawyer for Pam Griffin? Why you didn't get a lawyer for Susan Stein? Why you didn't get a lawyer for Judah Phillips? Why didn't you get a lawyer for the Fernies? Barbara Fernie? Because they probably don't really know you like that. They can be damaging, but not that damaging. But Cindy, she know you like that. Cindy knows you like that. Cindy might tell the cops something that might put them hot on your trail. And at this point, I'm trying to get the cops off of my trail. I'm trying to make sure they stay off of my trail. I don't need my ex-wife slipping up by mistake and saying something that's going to put me and my life as it is in detriment. I don't need that problem. I'm just trying to get on my feet as it is. So therefore, it's better to go ahead and pay for this attorney and circle the wagons. And we talk about all the time, John needs that element of control. And I'm sorry, man, from what it seems like on the outside, it seems like this is another element of control. You had the attorney waiting on me. What? You flatter me. You flatter me. Am I that much of a bungling fool that I bungled right here into your wife to ask questions, and you presented me with an attorney to stop them from talking, to stop me from learning because guys, come on, let's think about what they're trying to do. I'm just trying to learn more about you. We have not talked. Oh, by the way, they have not talked to the Ramseys yet. I'm just trying to talk to you. My God. And you're stopping me from talking to you. When can we talk? You have to do that. We have to talk to figure out how we're going to. Bro, if we don't talk, please help me. How are we going to find your daughter? You guys were in the house the night of your daughter's death. If we can't talk to you extensively about the things going on around the house, how will we solve the murder? How? In all seriousness, how will we solve the murder? Like, that's frustrating. Because if you don't talk to me, you don't let me talk to your son, the only people that were in the house at the time, how are we going to solve it? And that's when people start to get upset and angry, because it's like, I mean, you're stopping me from this is, we can talk to anybody that we want to. We can talk to your investigators and all your people. But what we really need to do is talk to you. And if we can't talk to you, then what do we have? We don't have anything. This is ridiculous. Okay. Page 26. Yes. Move on. So we're going to 30. Oh man, that was just crazy. You are really trying to wall me off. You're really trying to stop me. I got to start. And this is, see, when we talk about sort of leaning on behavioral motivations and stuff like that, this is why. Because if you go to a door enough and you knock at a door enough and somebody keeps jumping in front of the door and they jump in front of some doors and not others, that's going to make you be like, what's behind that door that you don't want me to see? Oh, no, nothing. Yeah, but I mean, you keep on stopping me from getting to the door. So clearly there's something behind this door that you don't want me to see. That's weird. Okay. What is it, 30? Okay. So for immediate release, April 15th, 1997. Fifth handwriting sample requested. Boulder District Attorney. So, and this goes to the fact that, they are continuing to ask for handwriting samples. We don't believe you. The Boulder District Attorney and Boulder Police Department have asked for or requested a fifth handwriting sample from Patsy Ramsey and have set forth the reasons for that request. Lawyers for the Ramseys are considering the appropriateness of this request. The appropriateness of the request is for us to help you find the killer of your daughter. That's the appropriateness of the request. So, this was I guess I can read this. Ramsey investigation update 37. Boulder police today confirmed. Oh, I probably should read this. I probably should. Actually, I added in my notes. Boulder police today confirmed that detectives Steve Thomas and Ron Gosich visited Charlotte, North Carolina to follow up on a Ramsey investigation. The detectives were in Charlotte April 6th and 7th. Charlotte police contacted Boulder police following their arrest of John Brewer, Eustace, because of similarities in the case, and that of John, in his case, and JonBenét Ramsey. So you got people we putting out calls to different states saying, if you got anybody the same, trying to use that good old police network, if you got somebody that seems the same, let us know. So they find a guy in North Carolina in Charlotte, and they say, hey, we got this guy that might be similar. Let's just talk it out in season. So this shows you the honesty that it's like, man, we're just following up on, let's talk about it. I'd rather go see and come up with nothing rather than to not check and have, and have questions. Following an extensive interview with Eustace, Detective Thomas and Gosage were able to conclusively rule him out as a suspect in the Ramsey case. Detective Commander John Eller adds, "We are appreciative of this help from the Charlotte Police Department as we have been of other law enforcement agencies throughout the investigation. Detectives from the Boulder Police Department are currently in the Atlanta area continuing to gather information." Eller explains, "Right now, we're in an analytical phase of the investigation as we read through over 200 interviews and review material. Our investigators will be in and out of state on a myriad of tasks, but we're not going to provide an itinerary. We have indicated throughout this case that we will talk to experts and interview people who may have information that will occasionally take us out of state. However, there have been instances where people decided not to talk with our detectives because of the attention this case is receiving. Obviously, that does not help move the case forward." Okay, blah, blah, blah. Other updates: DNA testing continues at the Cellmark Diagnostics Lab in Maryland. Completion of test and analysis is expected in 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. Look at the appropriateness of the request. So far, Ramsey update: expenses incurred by the Boulder Police Department through March 1997, 119 grand. This includes the 21,000 in December of 96, additional 97 through March. So of this year. So the 1997 expenditures are now at $69,000 of themselves. We previously talked about there were 77,000 a month in. They're about 77,000 at the end of total 77,000, and I think they spent like 56,000. Spent like $56,000 by themselves in the month of January. So about a month in though, about a month in January, but about a month in though, from December 26th of 1996 to January 26th of 1997, about a month, they had spent, I think, a total of 77 grand. And so now that's ballooned in March. At the end of March, that's ballooned to 97 grand. Told the police they have a budget of 14 million for the year. So just be careful. Expenditures include 69 grand for overtime, 18 grand for travel, 9,800 for investigative expenses. So $69,000 on overtime. Oh, wait. In response to media inquiries and to clarify inaccurate statements, Boulder Police Chief Tom Colby has the following statement. Mr. and Miss Fleet White Jr. are not suspects in the JonBenét Ramsey murder investigation. They are considered key witnesses. The Boulder Police Department appreciates the full cooperation they have received from the Whites since the beginning of their investigation. I feel this response is necessary due to the inaccurate portrayal of Mr. and Miss White in certain media productions. The request by the Boulder District Attorney's Office and Boulder Police Department for a fifth handwriting sample from Patsy Ramsey still being considered by lawyers for the Ramsey family. The CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, continues to analyze samples previously submitted. Mr. and Miss Fleet White are key witnesses. They have exhibited full cooperation from the beginning of the investigation. It is 3 months in on the other side of the new year. January, February, March, 3 months in, fully 3 months in. And this is why Fleet would know the number. Because Fleet is like, we have been involved with the cops speaking on your behalf, John and Patsy, from day one. And we have done interviews, we have given handwriting samples, but when I turn around, let me finish my sentence. When I turn around and I look, you are nowhere to be found. You're actually bouncing around in Atlanta. You running down to Atlanta. So you running down to Atlanta and back to Colorado. You back in town, and we don't even know you back in town. Of course, by this time, they're kind of, not friends anymore because at the funeral. But we can kind of see a little bit more of the explanation here from Fleet White's perspective. We can kind of reasonably assume that they have cooperated fully with the investigation from day one, but there's been a portrayal that they have done something, and they're mad about that. So the police are coming out and clearing them and saying they're not suspects, they're witnesses. But this is why Fleet and Priscilla would be mad, because they're like, hey, yo, we're taking heat for something we did not do. We're taking heat for something we were not a part of. I'm trying to help you, and this is the thanks I get. This nonsense. At this point, John and Patsy have not yet talked to the police. Moving on. 31. April 23rd, almost a month later. April 23rd. News update. Golly, they keeping us updated, aren't they? Bungling into an update is what we're getting. Thank you for letting us know. The Boulder Police Department has been interested in conducting interviews with John and Patsy Ramsey since the murder of their daughter, JonBenét Ramsey. To date, there have been 3 specific attempts to schedule interviews with the Ramseys. What attempts are those? You want us to tell you? We shall. The Boulder Police Department, the first attempt was immediately following the murder. It was the Boulder Police Department's expectation that John and Patricia Ramsey would provide interviews prior to leaving Boulder to attend their daughter's funeral in Atlanta. However, police were advised by the Ramseys that they had no intention of talking to police prior to taking the body to Atlanta to be buried. So at some point in time, prior to the 29th, relatively quickly, they told the cops, we're not going to talk to you. That is a crucial time, because that's the first 48 hours. That is the first 48 hours. We need this information so we can do our job. And they said, we'll talk about it when we get back from Atlanta. You know what that reminds me of? When they were sitting in the deposition and John was like, how long is this going to take? And Darnay was like, I mean, you got somewhere to be? And he was like, got a band concert to get to. It was 2:30. It was 2:30. The band concert went till like 6 or 7. It was 2:30. And John was like, how long is this going to last? I got somewhere to be. So you just gonna throw people's name in the hat. And when people question you about it, you're just gonna be like, oh, that ain't my problem. I'm trying not to get my name ruined. In the same way that y'all don't want your name tarnished, in the same way that you're mad at the cops because you believe the cops tarnished your name, those people are mad that their names were brought up in the first place. Fleet is mad. Jim Marino is mad. There's a third person I was thinking about. It was Fleet, Jim Marino, and somebody else. I can't remember. That they were mad that you bought there. I think Jeff Merrick was mad. But that's not the person I was thinking about. It's like I'm glad that one came to me. But there was another person. If I remember them, then I'll say something. But anyways, first attempt was immediately following the murder. They said we're not going to talk to you. Police were reluctant to release JonBenét's body because they were not sure all the necessary. Ooh, see, this is what I want to see. I was looking for it because I read this last night. Police were reluctant to release JonBenét's body because they were not sure all the necessary forensic work had been completed, nor had they had an opportunity to discuss the circumstances of JonBenét's death with the parents. The body was released to the Ramseys within 24 hours of their request. The second, so you are fighting for the body, and the cops are telling you, please, John, please, we still need to do work on this body. We still need to figure out the circumstances of everything. We need to understand. We need to go, because that's crucial. If Dr. Meyer gives me the autopsy report and he says this is what happened, I need to sit down with you and talk through this thing. Let's talk about it. But not only have you shielded yourself away, but you took JonBenét away so that boom, 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 boom. I'm making it difficult for you to get to these things. Oh, we had nothing to hide. You took your daughter away when we weren't done with the forensic questioning. And we still had questions of Dr. Because one of the things, and we can talk about it when we talk about the DNA analysis, on 2 different articles I saw that criticized Dr. Meyer's work on the autopsy report. They said there are things that he could have still done, that he still needs to do to sort of showcase or sort of get at the time of death. And he didn't do it. And part of that reason, I have to believe that the police were going to go ask, and they were going to bungle in and ask the coroner, what are the circumstances of this, that, and the third? Give us time to read through this report and then go ask. But what it seems, the story that's starting to unfold here, is that the Ramseys push things through very quickly, is what it seems like. According to these reports, the Ramseys push things very quickly, faster than the police were ready to push. The police wanted to slow down and take their time. I want to slow down, take my time, right? But this is what's so good about body language and behavior and reading through motivations, because through the words we can kind of see, okay, so these people pushed it forward really fast. Typically, when you push things forward really fast, you're trying to avoid something. Let me make an example. If you guys watch football, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Sometimes when there is a questionable play, you see the quarterback run up to the line and snap the ball real quick. And so as the replay is going on in the stadium, or if you've seen the replay, you rush to the line real quick because you know, oh, dang, that wasn't a catch. So you take advantage of the legal spectrum. Come on, let's talk about it, because people will be like, oh, that's just legal. It's legal. There's nothing wrong with doing things the legal way. But you do know that there are slips in the legal system, primarily if we go back to our football example, to where through the pass, the receiver looked like he caught it, dropped it. We all saw it on the screen. But because either the coach didn't move fast enough to throw the flag for challenge, he's still watching it. He's got other things on his mind. He's trying to make sure that everything's good and the players are in their defense, and his defense is, where they need to be. The personnel is where they need to be. His team is screaming, throw the flag, and he's looking at it just to make sure he makes a good decision. And the team knows, and they're rushing up to the line and running a play really quickly. So it really quickly takes your mind away from something illegal happened here. And I don't want to put it that way, but something that is not true happened here. The receiver did not catch the ball, but because of the legal framework that says that you can run up and snap the ball really quickly, it's legal, then we miss pertinent information that could change the outcome of the game. And it does a lot of times. That pass could have been completed or not completed on 3rd and 15. And you complete that long pass, or it looks like you completed that long pass, and that puts you in the red zone. Ladies, if I'm talking crazy, or anybody, if I'm talking crazy, maybe you're not a sports fan. Guys, if you're not a sports fan, maybe you're a soccer fan or something like that. If I'm talking crazy, let me explain it. Trying to get to the touchdown, right? Trying to get to the touchdown. And the red zone is like 20 yards outside of the touchdown. And so the red zone is a very important place for offenses to get because we're almost to the end. We're almost in the, we're close to scoring points. The red zone is important. That's where things get really critical, right? And people, emotions get higher. I want to stop you from scoring, and I know this is my last stand. So emotions get higher, and we start to play harder because as a defense, I really want to stop you from getting into the touchdown. And as an offense, I really want to try harder because I want to score points and I want to win this game. And so that pass gets me into the red zone, and it gets one team closer to one thing, and it gets another team closer to another. And so it means different things depending on what side you're on. And so if you're on the side of the Ramseys in terms of the offensive, you're saying snap the ball really quickly. That's what this is giving. Snap the ball really quickly. Snap it now. I don't care what play it is. Snap it and spike it. Get another play down legally because the framework allows me to. What do you want them to do? They're just inside the legal framework. Yes, but that we're talking about a 6-year-old girl that didn't get justice. That's what we're talking about. That. Talking about a 6-year-old girl that didn't get justice. That's why. And so when we start to see and that's why we went through John's business articles, some of the articles about his business and reporting on his business to understand, okay, how do you operate in your business? Because I knew that we would end up somewhere here. How do you operate in your business? Now, how do you operate at home? I want to see that. I want to see if your behavior is consistent all the way through, because I know if I find it here, this is going to give me my baseline, and then I can track you all the way through. It's possible that he's going to do this. It's possible. So if he's kind of controlling and somebody is saying, hey, that guy is falsifying sales data or sales reports, then we might need to look at falsification in other places. That's just the nature of it. Not saying he is doing it, but to keep your eyes open. That's where the hunch comes from. When we talk about research again, the research saying you need that gut feeling, you need that hunch, you need that quick reaction, that fast processing as well as the slow, but you need that to kind of say, okay, this person processed, and based on these sets of decisions, and his motivation is to, someone with this kind of motivation would want to, you're protecting something. You're defending me from something. If I drive and at every hand, you're jumping in front of me everywhere I go, you're jumping in front of me, you're stopping everything I do, you're stopping me, that would give me that would insinuate to me that you're trying to protect something. I don't know what you're trying to protect. Say, for example, if he's jumping in front of Patsy, then I would think that that's his wife. Naturally, he's going to want to protect Patsy for some reason. But what we have here, when we look at this protection wave, what we have here is they can protect Burke because Burke is their child and Burke is behind them. They don't need a lawyer for Burke because they simply say, he's our child. And no, you're not going to talk to him because, and as John stated in his book, you need permission from the parents. And he was upset because he said, they talked to, I think he was blaming it on Chief Eller or Commander Eller. He was saying, y'all talked to my son over at Fleet White's house, unauthorized. And he was mad about that. He said, you're supposed to talk to the parents. Very aware of the rules. You're very aware of the rules. You're very aware of what I'm supposed to be doing. Is what you are. You're extremely aware of what I'm supposed to be doing. And you're extremely astute. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't think it is. Astute in some case, yes. That's not the word I want, though. You are extremely... It's not determined. Man, the word is on the tip of my tongue. But anyways, the point that I'm trying to make is that you're extremely aware of everything that I need to do, is the point that I'm trying to make. You're extremely aware. You don't know what you need to do. You don't know what you need to do. We're not going to talk about according to you, we're not going to talk about what you need to be doing, but you are aware enough to know what I need to be doing. And you're going to hold me accountable by saying, well, you're a cop, do this, stay in the cop's lane. I want you to have human decency in this regard to leave me the heck alone. But in this regard, when trying to sort of ask me questions and try to get to my family and talk to my family about certain things, stay out of my life. Get out of my life. And that's a very weird position to be in. You know, that's a very, very, very weird position to be in, because the cops are getting two messages sent. The cops are receiving two messages. The cops on one hand are saying it's accepted to care for you in terms of pat you on your back. Oh, I'm so sorry this happened. But on the other hand, and that's accepted. But on the other hand, what's not accepted is, let's ask some questions and see how we can come to a resolve on this. Specifically starting with you. That's not accepted. Okay, go badger everyone else. That is not important. Yeah, go do that. Okay, everybody else as in everybody? Yeah. Okay, let's go talk to Cindy. You can't talk to Cindy. Somebody told me to watch a video. Her name is Darlene. And she was talking to a gentleman by the name of Charles. Theories are very similar to the Zell brothers. In terms of the whole town essentially being infested with child abusers, essentially, what is how I put it. If you subscribe to that kind of thing, man, you got to go listen to them. There's, I've listened to a few, man. They're pretty lengthy if you like long podcasts and stuff like that, long discussions. But they essentially talk about not only the prevalence of this kind of behavior in Boulder, but they talk about the players, sometimes in direct terms and other times in indirect terms. And when I was listening to the Darlene, I can't remember her last name. But when I was listening to that interview, they were saying that something to the effect that Beth knew that John, they were saying that John had abused Beth, is essentially what they're saying. And Beth had a story to tell about that. And she had met with a guy, she had met with Charles guy, and essentially said, hey, my dad, let me talk to you about this. And then later on, out of nowhere, Beth, she ends up in a car wreck. I don't, this is my point in bringing that story up. You never know what people are doing. So I can't say it's not real, but all I typically ask is when I see stuff like that is, do you got a mountain of evidence? You know what I mean? Just because you don't want to be out here accusing people and saying anything and, talking reckless, you really don't, because these things are important. These are that changes the scope of how people see you, man. And I don't want to put any undue, visuals or I don't want to ruin anybody's reputation on anything that's like, man, that had nothing to do with me. So I don't want to do that. But essentially, when this happens and you block and you block and you block, and we can't get to what we need, and Melinda has not talked. That's one of the biggest things to me. Melinda has not talked in public that I've seen. It kind of almost makes you wonder a little bit, if there's any truth to those theories in like a small way. It's just like, bro, you're blocking so hard. Like, what will I find if I go past this block? If I were to sneak in your house unattended, what would I find? You know, these are the concerns about the motivations that are happening here. And this is crazy. The more I read this stuff, and I guess I'll have to do a part 3 to this. I'll do a part 3 to this. I didn't think this was going to move me that much, but I guess it has. I guess it's told me, because I kind of browsed through this as I was working through, but you know, and I really didn't think about it, but I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. But the more I go through this stuff, it's like, based on, and you compare it to what you know, and you say, based on that, it's like, you said, so your motivation is this, because if you rush me out of the way and you rush me through, you tie my hands from being able to accurately look at all aspects of the case. Going back to my football example, if the cops were allowed, and I'll do it in terms of cops, if the cops were allowed to slow down that play clock and say, wait a minute, let's slow down for just for a second and let the replay play. Everybody in the stadium can watch. That would stop the referees from having to go look specifically at a specific case, number one. Number two, it would save the coach a challenge. They wouldn't have to waste a challenge or risk a timeout, because you put that fear in them that if I throw this red flag and it's wrong, I'm going to waste a timeout. And I don't want to waste a timeout right now for game strategy. And that's what I'm saying. When we think about the legal landscape and we think about it in terms of football, there's all these things that are happening in this one moment. Why would the coach not just go ahead and throw the red challenge flag if his team is screaming at him? Well, if I do that right now and I'm wrong, I lose a timeout, because it counts as a timeout because I've wasted, time. If I win the challenge, then I get to keep my timeout, and, it's now 4th down in the scenario that we described. But if I throw it and I lose a timeout, then that significantly messes up my strategy. And so some things I might have to let go of in order to maintain what I think is my strategy. And I'll have to formulate a thought on the back end to try to correct for that, of an update on everything. But sometimes it doesn't work out, because, as we said before, the offense has moved into the red zone so close to the touchdown that now they're in jeopardy of scoring points if you're the defense. And if they score points, guess what? Your defense is behind 7 points now. So that radically changes the dynamics of how, if we put it back in police terms, that's now going to radically change the dynamics, because now if you're thinking in terms of the Ramseys case, the Ramseys are a touchdown ahead. And so now you have to scramble to try to get a touchdown, right? It puts pressure on your offense to go get a touchdown to try to at least keep the score even, right? And when you have a defense like the Ramseys and Hal Haddon and their other attorneys, and you have attorneys at and you stack your defense, sometimes, and that's the thing in football, sometimes people with the highest salary or and who are willing to go outside of the salary cap, there's a salary cap that's designed for parity. In football, there's a salary cap to say, hey, this is how much everybody has to spend, so you can't overspend and get all the best players and just spend wildly based on the value of your franchise and how much money you make. Everybody's got some sort of parity, and it's all about how much money you have. But sometimes, and I'm just assuming this, I know it's this way in basketball, sometimes there's what's called a luxury tax. And a luxury tax allows you to, if you go over that salary cap, then you have to pay a penalty. But sometimes in research, and the research has shown us, depending on what you state is the penalty, people would be willing to pay it. I think they said they did a study to where parents were showing up late for this daycare. And when they would get there, and they were getting off work and stuff like that, and when they would get there, they would apologize and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, picking up my kids late, whatever. And they would try to show up, on time. But the daycare said, you know what, we're going to get paid for this. We're going to, put a penalty on a monetary penalty on you being late. Guess what? There was an uptick in parents paying the penalty because they kind of saw it as an after, and it got later and later. Parents would say, I'm paying the fee. What's the problem? So there are people who are willing to pay that fee to go out of bounds and go out of the line. And so even though we set up a legal ramification that wasn't supposed to be used for this, people said, I'm willing to go out of bounds and pay a little bit more to be slapped on the wrist. But I don't feel as bad because now I'm paying a fee associated with it. And the same way in this case, if John is willing to pay, or John and Patsy are willing to pay a higher fee to get a better defense team. So essentially, I'm going to get a defensive lawyer here. I'm going to get a defense lawyer, a criminal lawyer here, and you know what? We're going to go big. We're going to get a criminal lawyer here too. So that's, to me, you going outside of the salary cap. Now you're willing to pay the excess tax. Now we're talking about whatever I'm doing. Think about what I'm saying. Whatever I'm doing, I am willing to go broke over. Willing to go broke? Are the police coming after you that bad that you are willing to go broke? Think about this. John had a life in front of him. John and Patsy, but John, no disrespect to Patsy, but John was holding financially. He was holding the family together. So his reputation had to be intact. And John said, and got Patsy on board. John said, I am willing to go broke. And Patsy, because Patsy's chemo came up. But they were willing to put themselves in. We don't know the future because some of us have savings accounts and have retirement accounts because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So we save for a rainy day. John said, pull it all out. I need to clear all the savings accounts. I need to liquidate assets. We need to, the change and the shakeup is so drastic. What does it look like when somebody comes in and starts firing teachers, right? They're trying to shake something up, right? What does it look like when there's a corporate shakeup, right? People just start coming in and firing people and stuff like that. You know, look at the presidential, look what's going on in the presidential cabinet right now. There's a lot of shakeups. A lot of movement here. Trump said, hey, I want to shake this up. I want to shake this up. I want to shake this up. Not to get political. So I'm not making any judgments on him doing those things. What I'm saying is Trump and his associates see everything that's going on in the White House and in government as this is bad, widespread corruption. We need to shake things up. And so there is something, and to kind of get back to that point, there is something in John Ramsey that says we need to shake this entire thing up. And this, whatever happened with JonBenét, is so important. And I feel that it's so important that I need to drastically shake up our lives. Because now we're going from asking the question of, and that's why I said the tier of lawyer is important, because now we're going from asking, what kind of lawyer are you getting again that you would go broke over? Wait, what did you do again? Oh, you guys are blaming me. Yeah, I get that. But wouldn't you just retain a lawyer to, just a simple lawyer, not a Kobe Bryant all-star lawyer? You don't need that. And of course, he represented John and Patsy first, but a lawyer of that caliber who can represent a Kobe Bryant and get things. He's been doing this. They've been doing this. Why would you need a celebrity, like get you out of some real deep stuff lawyer like that? You know what I mean? Like, why would you need a lawyer like that for this? Because if the cops are going to find a dead end, they're going to find a dead end. Because I don't even think this is about the rich and the famous anymore and the wealthy. This is not about the wealthy. This is about somebody who is willing to go broke over this. My God. Why are you this willing to go broke if they don't have anything? You know what I mean? Because like if somebody truly didn't have anything on you, you know what I mean? Like if somebody didn't have anything on you, you'd be like, I ain't gonna find nothing. That's it. Or if somebody brings some serious allegations against you, you're like, I'm gonna let my lawyer handle it and that's it. Hey man, ain't nothing, you know. I think Jay-Z was accused of something in this whole Diddy thing. And Jay-Z from day one, he said, I got my lawyer on it. The truth will come out. And we didn't hear nothing else. And then somebody came and said, hey, it's been rescinded. They're pulling the case. You know, they're dropping the charges against Jay-Z. Now, Jay-Z, obviously, because of the money he has, probably paid for a high price attorney. But I guess I'm saying is there wasn't a lot of chat, a lot of chatting about it. And nobody's on trial for murder because it's like, you really, you scare me. You're scaring me because you really went and got a dream team for everyone. I would be able to get, because Jay-Z got a lawyer for himself to handle his own business. He didn't go get a different lawyer for Beyonce. He didn't go get a different lawyer for his mom or whoever else, his friends, some of his closest friends. He just got a lawyer for himself and said, my lawyer's on it. This will cover everything. John went and got a lawyer for him, a lawyer for Patsy, and then a lawyer for his ex-wife and kids. That's a lot of firepower, buddy. If you walk up with some, if you walk out, man, look, I remember being at the gun range. That was my first time there. And my brother, you know, he does it all the time. You know, he's familiar with it. Ex-military. He's happy. I'm not scared to admit to you. He's happy, you know, do this stuff. I said, man, I want you to take me to the gun range. And so we show up and, you know, I'm holding my thing, you know, I got my piece. And I'm, you know, obviously this, you recognize that this is a real thing. You know what I mean? Like you really come to grips that this is not something to be played with. You know what I mean? Like of all the movies and everything that you see, the sensationalization of this, you really come to grips in that moment that this is not anything to be played with. I got to hold this steady. This thing is not anything to be played with. So I'm practicing on my target. Boom, 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 boom. And I got my headphones on. We got the headphones are the soundproofing things that you put on. Yo, as if mine wasn't strong enough. I forget what I was using. I don't know if it was a 9mm or something like that. But anyways, man, I feel like somebody came. No, they didn't. I don't think so. But what somebody came with like I don't know what it was. I don't think it was a shotgun, but whatever it was, I had my headphones on and it was so loud. You boom, boom, boom. Like I told my brother, and you felt it through the walls. And I told my brother, I said, yo, I stepped back and I put my piece down and I just kind of sat there. And my brother said, what are you doing? And I said, man, I'm waiting till he gets done, man, because like I'm gonna wait till he gets done. Because I was like, man, it's kind of throwing me off. You know what I mean? It's kind of throwing me off just a little bit. So my point in saying all that, when we think about this in the context of the Ramsey case, my question was like, dang, this dude is really coming with some firepower, you know, at the range. I was like, yo, this dude is really coming with some firepower. And That is my question with John and Patsy in this point. You guys are not only coming with a little bit of power, you guys are coming with some serious firepower. Why are you doing that? If you are sometimes the level of firepower that you come with is indicative of how bad it could get. And if you believe, it could be indicative that you really believe that they might find some, not only some stuff, because it's like, it's one thing if they find some stuff and it's like, man, that's just, sparse evidence that could go one way or the other. That's whatever. I'm not waking up out of bed for that. I'm not getting out of bed for that. I'm gonna say what I need to say and get off the phone. But if they might come with some heavy hitters, I might need a lawyer. If they might hit me with some stuff, some haymaker, some 1-2, boom, 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 some combos, I might need to have my lawyer in the room with me. I might need to have my lawyer sitting there watching everything that I say, second opinion, advising me of my rights. Because I don't want to get up there and they catch me in a whirlwind, in a fog, and I slip up and say something that I don't need to be saying. Why? I don't want to slip up and say anything I don't need to be saying. Because I don't trust myself. I could slip up and say something that I don't want to say, and that could get the bloodhounds out on me. I am becoming more and more concerned on this. But anyways, I'll stop it there. I guess I'll do the rest later. I'll stop it there. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think thus far. I know I'm doing my own kind of independent investigation. I know sometimes it's a little different, you know what I mean? But thanks for sticking with me. And have a great day. Take care of yourself. And until next time, take it easy.